Good morning and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Dave Deacon, and a lot of producers are thinking about the upcoming crops. And Brian, producers need to be thinking about soil fertility.
Absolutely, and right now nitrogen is a key aspect of which everybody's considering. Anhydrous prices have been low recently, and we had a run on purchasing and applying anhydrous before this rain came through. The more rain we have, the more forage we produce, and also the more likelihood we lose nitrogen. So those that put anhydrous on already are going to soon have good fall pasture production, are likely going to be short in the spring when it comes to either finishing out that wheat crop for grazing or going to a grain. And so account for that going into the spring when it's top dress time, and going in for your grain, and know that you've had this much taken out, we need this much more on.
We've been fortunate this year, in a couple of years past, to get that rainfall.
Yeah.
Walk us through what moisture does to soil fertility.
So what moisture is doing to soil fertility, primarily the nitrogen and the mobile nutrients, which would be sulfur, chloride, boron. But let's just talk about nitrogen. Well, it's August in Oklahoma and it's raining, so our temperatures are well above 70 and we have moisture. As we convert from ammonium to nitrate, we go from a nutrient that is held on the soil to nitrate, which is mobile in moisture. So as our soil profile fills up, as it saturates up with the rainfall, we have that soil held in, the moisture held in the soil, and the nitrate is in with the moisture. Wherever that water goes in the soil, the nitrate will go with it.
That covers the end, but then there's also some other elements that producers are going to be concerned with.
And right now, one of the biggest priorities I'd have with the producers, the nitrogen, the secondary, it's the pH and phosphorus.
Right.
Banding the phosphorus fertilizer with the seed, puts it in there, it ties up the aluminum, which is hurting the plant, and allows that plant to grow. And at the same time we put the phosphorus in furrow, we can also take care of our phosphorus needs as far as fertility goes. So phosphorus based upon the soil test, and then the additional 30 pounds of P2O5 per acre if you have soil acidity in the field.
Now, we've talked about the enriched strip several times. It's as easy as the setup we have back here.
Yeah, we have a lot of producers that may use anhydrous applicators, spinner spreaders, big spinner spreaders, liquid rigs. Some will use an ATV, but I'm putting more of these into the county offices now. And this is all that is really needed is a push spreader and some urea. And we go out in the field, and I would like to see, 100 foot of pass. And so I always recommend, even if it's grazed, find a way to mark where that starts. So if it's a flag outside the fence or hot wire, or use a fence post as your starting point, and we just mark it with a single flag. I want to see, they open it up, and I want to see the application go. I'm wide open on this.
Yeah.
I want to see the application go, I'd like to see 100 feet.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with anything we can get on this.
Yeah.
And then always remember, when you shut it off, to come in on the backside, mark your point, keep an eye on this. We don't have to have a sensor to make a nitrogen rate.
Right.
If it shows up, there is a need for more nitrogen, we can start making recommendations. Don't worry, our newest research is showing that if the strip shows up, you have some time to get on. Plan it with the weather, make sure your application's suited where you can get it on in front of a rainfall if possible. And this is how Oklahoma wheat producers are maximizing nitrogen use efficiency, maximizing yield, and getting protein levels up above 12%.
So a minimal investment in a yard spreader could impact your crop.
$30 or $40 on the spreader, $10, $15 on a couple bags of urea, and we're talking for the winter wheat crop, $10 per acre per year.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Brian. And for more information on soil fertility, visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
The fall calving season for those herds in Oklahoma that have a fall calving is underway, or very soon will be. And whether it's fall calving or spring calving, ranchers face a decision during every calving season, and that decision is how long do we wait for a cow or a 2-year-old heifer while she's in labor before we get her up to examine her to see if she needs some assistance. Well, there's research that was done over 30 years ago, some done here at Oklahoma State University, some up at Miles City, Montana at a USDA research station up there, where they took a real close look at the time of what we call stage 2 of labor of beef cows and heifers. Let's define stage 2. Stage 2 begins when we first see the appearance of the water bag, and stage 2 ends when there's a live baby calf on the ground. How long is stage 2? That'll give us a hint as to when we should bring her up to provide some assistance. Well, in the case of 2-year-old heifers, in both the Montana and the OSU studies, they were very, very similar. One of them 54 minutes in length on the average, the other 55 minutes in length. For the mature cows, those that had had calves before, it was much shorter, as you might expect, and the average length of time was only 22 minutes. Now, these data sets give us then some rules of thumb that I think we can follow as we're watching cows or heifers during this or any calving season. And that is that if we have a 2-year-old heifer that we know when the water bag or those baby feet first appeared, and 1 hour later she's not making any progress, then we need to get her up and examine her to see if we can apply some assistance or if it's a problem that we can't handle and we need to call our local large animal veterinarian as soon as possible. In the case of that older cow, it's only 30 minutes. If we see baby feet or a water bag and 30 minutes later she's not close to delivering that calf, there's probably something wrong and we need to go ahead and examine her, find out what the problem is, handle it, or else again call our local veterinarian. We want to remember that time is of the essence. The amount of time that those calves go through that birthing process affects their viability once they're actually delivered. And if you'd like to learn more about working with cows and heifers in and around calving time, I certainly urge you to go to the SUNUP website. That's sunup.okstate.edu. Look under show links, and we've got a link there to a publication. Go ahead and download that particular publication, and it'll give you a lot of detailed information about working with cows and heifers at calving time. And we certainly look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
We're here with Darryl Peel, a livestock marketing specialist. And Darryl, August has been a lot cooler and a lot more wetter than what we're used to. This has got to be good for cattle, right?
Absolutely. It's been a very unusual August with the moisture we've had, the cooler temperatures. We had some, marginal drought conditions, mostly in the western part of the state, but we've erased most of that now. So we've got a real opportunity here to grow some additional forage at the end of the summer and into the fall.
So how can producers take advantage of this?
Well, cow-calf producers, we're looking at an opportunity here to, for introduced pastures or for native ranges to grow some additional forage. We can stockpile some of that for use into the fall and up into the winter. So there's an opportunity here to reduce, cow cost, reduce hay feeding needs. Introduced pastures will probably need some late summer fertilization for Bermuda or perhaps for fescue as well to grow that forage. So this presents some opportunities there to enhance forage production and maybe give us some additional management and production alternatives, as well as reducing cost for these animals.
Moving to stockers, is it too early to start grazing on wheat?
Well, I think it's a little early yet, but I'm sure some of the guys that are interested in grazing wheat are already thinking about it. Again, we've with the moisture we've got, and more importantly, perhaps we've got the cooler temperatures. The soil temperature is cool, so these guys can think about planting about as early as they want to. Usually, it's soil temperature that limits kind of when we can plant wheat. I don't know that they're going to want to plant right away, but they're starting to think about it. So we've got an opportunity here to get a jump start on that wheat pasture. For stocker producers, they may want to combine that with the other forage that can grow. And so we've got an opportunity here for a very long, or at least a longer than usual, grazing period in the fall and winter, and maybe even all the way out for graze out next year, depending on what these guys are thinking about in terms of their wheat.
So what can producers do right now?
Well, I think the main thing right now is probably to do a little planning. Think about the opportunities this presents, maybe that are a little different than usual. For cow-calf guys, you know, you maybe retaining your calves a bit after weaning. Obviously, this is a good time to think about whether a preconditioning program works. But even beyond that, if you've got that extra forage and the quality's there, you can graze it. Maybe keeping some cull cows and putting a little weight on them this fall and winter, taking advantage of this extra forage. Stocker guys, again, starting early. They've got an opportunity to think about what kind of animals they want to graze, whether or not they've got a chance potentially to run 2 sets of animals this winter. Just some different alternatives. So do some planning. If you are going to try to stockpile introduced pastures, you're going to want to get that fertilizer application done here pretty quick. So that's probably the one thing that really needs to get started in terms of activity right away.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Livestock Marketing Specialist at Oklahoma State University.
This has been a strange summer in Oklahoma. The heat rolls in, followed soon by cooler temperatures. Drought gets started, but before it settles in, rain shows up. The number of days at or above 100 this year through August 22nd has stayed on the low side in western and central Oklahoma. In eastern Oklahoma, few places have hit 100 at all, and strangely, Hooker has seen the most days hit 100 or more, 25. Kingfisher is one of the few spots to have hit 100 in August. This air temperature mediogram for Kingfisher from July 24th through August 23rd shows 3 days at 100 or more in July and only 1 day in August. Rain over the 7 days from August 16th to August 23rd was widespread across the state. McAllister collected 3 1/10 inches of rain. Port Altus only recorded 0.03 of an inch over those 7 days, and Medford was the lone site with no rain at all. The 7-day change in soil moisture showed the winners and losers. Soil moisture went up in the green areas by as much as 0.7. The gray-purple areas lost soil moisture. Here's Gary with a check on our disappearing drought and a look ahead.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Well, we all know by now that August has been fairly wet and fairly cool. In fact, one of the wettest and coolest Augusts on record so far. So wet and cool that I've actually started to grow a beard during this normally hot month. But I'm not going to show you a lot of rainfall maps or a lot of temperature maps this go around. I'm just going to show you the latest drought monitor map and the result of that wet and cool August thus far. We've really wiped out drought across the state. We just have a couple of problem areas up around the Guthrie, Kingfisher, Enid area, and then also close to my hometown of Buffalo, Oklahoma, up in Harper County in the far northwest. So those are just abnormally dry conditions, not drought, but those are places we need to keep an eye on because they haven't gotten the generous rainfall amounts that other parts of the state have seen. Now we're going to take a look at the outlooks for September from the Climate Prediction Center. For temperature, we do see increased odds, slightly increased odds of below normal temperatures, at least across about the northwestern half of the state. And for precipitation, increased odds of above normal precipitation across most of the state, excluding the Panhandle. So nothing too earth-shattering there. If we go out and look at the, this would be for the September through November period, so getting into later fall, we do see increased odds of above normal temperatures, not too greatly increased odds for most of the United States, and also increased odds of above normal precipitation for most of the state, especially about the southeastern half of the state. So with those outlooks, it looks pretty favorable to possibly get rid of drought or any type of drought worries across the state. by the end of, if not next month, the next 2 or 3 months as we get into our secondary rainy period. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Another week, another battering of the wheat prices. Kim, what is happening?
Well, you look at those KC contracts. You got the September went below $4 this week at $3.99. The D's at $4.27. The July at $4.77. You know, I've been talking to analysts, and they've just, I think, just thrown up their hands. I don't know an analyst that has picked the next bottom on wheat prices. And what we've been talking about is what's been going on over in Russia and Europe and the former Soviet Union countries.
What is that deciding factor? Is it the protein?
Well, I think the quality of the product and the quantity. You look at at Russia. You know, they're having a record crop. They beat last year's record. They may produce over 3 billion bushels of wheat this year. They're the #1 exporter last year. They're projected to be the #1 exporter this year. They've got, you know, they're selling 12.5 protein. They're delivering those cargoes relatively easy. They even have a lower price for the 11.5. And then this week it came out that France's wheat, 92% of it's 11.5 protein or better, milling quality wheat, and the majority of it is 12.5 protein or better.
Who's buying all this wheat?
Well, Russia, it was announced their first sale to Venezuela, and if I did the calculations right, they're delivering 12.5 protein wheat, milling quality wheat, hard wheat, into Venezuela for $5.60 a bushel. You look at that market, normally belongs to U.S. and Canada. We normally export around 4.4 million bushels of wheat a month into Venezuela. Russia has a contract with or an agreement with Venezuela to deliver 2.2 million bushels of wheat into there. So I think we're going to see France taking an export market that they didn't have last year, and I think we're going to see Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan taking additional export markets.
So what does that mean for U.S. and Oklahoma wheat?
Well, I think we're going to see our exports probably come down. When we do that, our ending stocks are going to go up. Hopefully the market's already taking that in consideration, and we won't see prices go much lower. It looks like they're building a bottom right now, but we said that 50 cents ago too.
When do you think everything will settle out in the world market?
Oh, I think, well, I started to say I think as soon as we get a handle on what Russia and France is going to do, but I think we've already got a handle on that. We've got Australia that, you know, their production was projected to be 33% lower. Right now it's 25% lower. If that Australian crop continues to grow, and if we look at Argentina, if their crop was to grow, it could get worse. Before the seeds are planted for grain this year, what advice do you have for those wheat growers in Oklahoma? Put a pencil to it. I don't know that we can afford to plant those marginal acres. I think you've got to look at managing your costs. That's extremely important, in getting that yield in there. And I think that Plant Soil Science, Brian Arnell and some of them, they have some good recommendations on how to lower your fertilizer costs and keep your yields up, or maybe even improve them. And I think that's important to manage those costs. Okay, thank you much. Kim Anderson, Grain Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
We're talking about the differences today between convection ovens and conventional ovens with Tim Bowser, our food processing engineer. And Tim, what are some of the differences? How can we sort it all out?
The major difference is really simple. The convection ovens nowadays have a fan inside, and that fan just blows the air around, the hot air inside the oven.
Okay, well that's a pretty simple explanation. What about what you're cooking inside of it? How do you weigh the difference of what the best oven would be based on what you want the outcome of your food product to be?
Sure, a lot depends on your preferences, the food you select, and the particular oven you purchase.
I tend to think about cakes and pies and pastries, baked goods. Is that kind of accurate?
Baked goods is very accurate. We're right here in a bakery lab at OSU, and this oven behind us is what they use as a convection oven for cooking their breads.
And then more and more though, I guess it's trendy for people to have an at-home model, right?
Yes, it's much more trendy. It's more expensive, of course, but it is relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of things because you can reduce energy costs and the time it takes to cook.
So if I'm shopping for an oven later this year, let's say a new stove for my home, what should I consider? What kind of research and information do I need to take with me to the store when I'm starting to look around?
Well, you definitely want to look at all the models that are available, the top models, and I would definitely do an internet search to find out what the other people are saying about those ovens.
What about cooking things like casseroles and meats and things maybe outside of the traditional baked goods area?
Well, here's a great thing about these convection ovens. You don't have to worry about the differences because if you buy a convection oven, you can just turn the fan off, turn off the convection feature, and you have an ordinary regular oven there. So you have both available to you. So if you're not liking the performance of the convection oven, just don't use it.
Does the food taste better? That's what I want to know.
The food can taste better, yes. You might get a more juicy product X or a more crusty product Y. It just depends on how your settings and your oven and the food.
So probably just like a new car, it really depends on the driver.
Absolutely. You want to spend some time in the seat of that car and see how it works for you. You need to play around with it in a sense, really, and that's the same thing with the convection oven.
Terrific. Well, thanks for the perspective, Tim.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you.
Finally today, SUNUP's Curtis Hare takes us to Blaine County to introduce us to a family that's developing creative ways to bring additional income to their family farm.
I am a basic Western Oklahoma wheat and cattle farmer. Spending most of the day in a swather cutting alfalfa is a basic chore on an Oklahoma farm. But mention Game of Thrones to Aaron Bass, and you'll quickly find out this producer is anything but basic.
What I always liked about the books was you would have your different chapters, and every third or fourth chapter it shifted characters. Now I got to read from the point of view of Jamie.
Aaron runs his farm with his wife Jennifer on the windy fields of their hometown in Geary. Their production, Bass Vines and Cattle, consists mainly of wheat, grass-fed cattle, and a schoolhouse from the 1920s.
We moved it here. My dad and I saw it not far from here, but we had never seen it before, just on the rare road you've never been down. Got a crazy old man to move it for us for not much. Remodeled it, set it up.
That day driving with his dad, Aaron didn't see a rundown schoolhouse. He saw an opportunity.
Initially it was going to be the focus of the winery, but I think we realized pretty quick that wasn't going to work. So we've switched it to weddings and events.
Well, you don't want all your eggs in one basket, so it's always good to have them in different places.
Frustrated with the ups and downs of traditional farming, Aaron and Jennifer decided to plant seeds in unconventional plots. In 2007, they started growing grapes and opened a winery. They moved to the grass-fed beef market and eventually started holding events and weddings at the schoolhouse.
I like different things. I like learning. I'm a teacher. I have not stopped learning. I've gone back for my MBA. I've done all sorts of things just because I need to keep going. And I kind of drag him along with me.
Recently, they found another way to use that old schoolhouse: Airbnb.
95% of my Airbnbers are awesome. They want to stay here because it's a one-room schoolhouse, because they get to see it on our prairie.
Airbnb is an online hospitality service where people can lease out their homes for lodging. It only made sense for this unique couple to rent out their unique piece of property, and it's paid off.
It's amazing how many people and the diverse types of people from around the country that just want to come out to a Western Oklahoma farm. You know, I think we kind of take it for granted. You know, they all want to talk about the stars or the quiet or hearing the coyotes or something like that. So it's just easy to take that for granted.
Diversifying your business can be really valuable, and I encourage everybody to do a significant amount of research and start with information that you know is from a credible source. So your land-grant universities, other institutes and centers that do scientific research are good places to start.
You need to have several different areas that you can work on, because sometimes one area will be up and another will be down. You know, wheat production in Oklahoma, we've seen $10 wheat, we've seen $2 wheat.
When I started farming, wheat was $2, and I thought that was pretty good. And it's almost back to there now, and the inputs are a lot a lot more. I think it's just good to find anything that can help you bridge the gap a little bit.
If you can say one thing about the Bass family, they're not afraid of new business ventures. Although they moved on from the winery, they moved forward and invested in another out-of-a-box idea for a farm: yoga.
I started the yoga training right after my mom died, and it really helped me get my perspective back after all of that really hard time. And then when the opportunity to open a yoga studio in Edmond that's franchised off of our Midtown studio, he told me I had to do it.
Aaron and Jennifer's partnership is the main reason for their production success. Both will hop in a combine and both will read up on new ways to add to their production and try new things. It's a mentality Aaron hopes other producers will adopt.
Don't let your preconceived notions hold you back from an opportunity. I always argue that a farmer's job isn't necessarily to feed the world or, even make big crops or anything like that. Your job is to make a living, raise your family out here.
In Blaine County, I'm Curtis Hare.
Well, that does it for us this week on SUNUP. If there's something on the show that you'd like to learn more about, visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu, and while you're there, check out our social media. I'm Dave Deacon, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at SUNUP.